Hello everybody and welcome back to the space where we say that I can sleep. It is now October of 2024, which means it is officially spooky season, Halloween season, so I hope you guys have some great plans as far as like dressing up, cosplaying, trick-or-treating, etc, etc. And I hope wherever you guys are, the weather is faring much better because it still feels like god dang summer over here. For no reason at all. Summer needs to go. But let's not focus on the negatives, let's focus on the positives, like this reading. I hope you guys are enjoying these readings, and if you would like for me to continue doing these readings, you can support me via Patreon at officially I Can Win, where you can get access to exclusives like sneak peeks, raw, unedited recordings where you will get to hear all of my mistakes and all my little weird noises, yada 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 yada, and also a little bit into like my personal life as well. I post on there. You can also support me on my other platforms like Spotify and YouTube at iKenSleep, and TikTok and Instagram at officially.icanwin. Oh, and also please like, share, leave comments, and yeah, you know the drill. Now let us ascend once again into Heaven Official's blessing. Chapter 48, Fight for Commendation. Eming battles Ruoye. The scimitar shook more and more uncontrollably. Shilian was at a loss for how to respond, and he gently stroked along the blade's spine. I'm sorry. I didn't see it was you. I won't do it again. After stroking it a few times, Eming's eyes squinted, and the trembling finally stopped. Shilian then asked, Where's your master? Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Pay it no mind. Shilian looked back and immediately rose to his feet, surprised and delighted. Sanlang, what brings you here? Behind him was a youth who strode easily toward Shilian with an air of playful arrogance. It was Huachang. He had once more tied his black hair into a crooked ponytail and was dressed in a white tunic. His red outer jacket tied around his waist, his sleeves were rolled up, revealing those firm, pale white arms and the tattoo on one of them. As he walked, the little silver bells on his boots jingled capriciously. He looked very much like a strapping, free-spirited lad next door. He smiled at Shilian, a stalk of grass dangling from his lips. Shilian had originally planned on visiting Huachang to give proper thanks after settling the two children, but here he had showed up first. Lazily, Huachang sauntered to his side and pulled the silver scimitar from the ground with a single hand. He looked it over, then rested it on his shoulder. Guga is busy here. There's no need to trouble yourself to make the trip when I can come over on my own. Oh, and you also forgot this. A bamboo hat hung on Huachang's back, and he removed it to hand it over. Shilian had forgotten it at the mansion of the wealthy merchant, and he was slightly taken aback. Oh, it completely slipped my mind, he hurriedly said. Thanks for going to the trouble. As he spoke, he suddenly remembered what he had told Huachang after a certain incident the night before. I'm looking for my bamboo hat. My bamboo hat is missing. This had been nonsense uttered in a state of confusion, but Huachang actually had gone and found his bamboo hat. Shilian felt a wave of embarrassment and feared Huachang would tease him for it. Fortunately, Huachang didn't even mention the incident and changed the subject with a smile. Guga picked up 2 more kits. He commented as he petted Gushi's head, ruffling his hair into a mess. Gushi seemed to be scared of Huachang, and he rushed to hide behind Shilian. Shilian chided him. "Don't worry, this Gaga is a good person." "Nah, I'm a very bad person," Huachang replied. Although that was what he said, he flicked his hand, and a tiny silver butterfly flipped out of his sleeve. Fluttering its little wings, it flew errantly toward Gushi. Gushi's inky little eyes bulged as he stared in fixated wonder at the tiny silver butterfly, and he reached out to try to catch it in spite of himself. With that, his suspicion toward Huachang dropped significantly. Huachang nonchalantly glanced at Lang Ying, but this gaze was quite different from the one he turned on Gushi. When Huachang looked at Lang Ying, his eyes were cold and sharp, utterly unfriendly. Lang Ying lowered his head and shrank behind Shilian anxiously. "If you're gonna come, just come," Shilian said, bamboo hat in hand. What are you doing cleaning Puchi's shrine?" "It was just a bit of tidying," Huachang replied. "Don't you think everything feels so much more refreshing now that all the trash is cleared out?" Shilian remembered the missing Qirong and wondered, did Huachang actually throw him out with the garbage? There was a sudden wail from behind Puchi's shrine. "Huachang, you fucker! Go to hell and get boiled in a pot of frying oil! Murder! Huachang's committing murder!" Gushi cried. "Dad!" He dashed over on his little legs, and Shilian hastily followed. A small creek ran behind Puchi's shrine. It was where Shilian usually did laundry and washed rice. At the moment, it was instead Qirong who was being dunked in the water, his body bound tightly by Ruoye. He desperately tried to keep his head above water and roared for all he was worth. "I won't get out! I refuse to get out! I will stay in this body until it dies! I won't surrender!" Huachang spat out the stalk of grass. "You take yourself for some kind of hero? Useless trash." "I captured him a few days ago on some mountain," Shilin explained woefully. "He's possessing someone and won't come out. The man is still alive, so if we forcibly rip out Qirong's soul, the flesh won't survive. Honestly, does Sunlong have any idea what we can do?" You want ideas on how to make him suffer a fate worse than death?" Huachang asked. "There's plenty of options." That was obviously a threat. Qirong cussed. "You two! Broken pot with a rotten cover to match. Hearts of snakes and scorpions." He hadn't finished before he was submerged in the creek again. Whenever Shilian saw Qirong, he was filled with both anger and sorrow, remembering how his mother's corpse had dissolved to ash. Nevertheless, that body belonged to another, so it had to be preserved. Thus, he fished Qirong from the creek and dragged him to the front door of Puchi's shrine. Qirong hadn't eaten for a full day and night, so his stomach was shriveled with hunger. After Huachang's bullying, he was full of rage but had no energy. Appearing truly wretched and pathetic, he wolfed down the meat pies Gushi had snuck back from the wealthy merchant's house, leaving not a single crumb. Shilian shook his head. He noticed that Qirong's limbs were stiff, probably from some petrification spell cast by Huachang. "Ruoye, return," Shilian called. Ruoye had spent days binding Qirong and was feeling extremely aggrieved for it. With that call, he immediately whooshed over and wrapped itself in loops around Shilian's whole body like a white snake. Shilian pushed open the door and comforted it as he did so, untying it from his person. All right. I'll give you a bath in a bit. Don't feel bad. Go play over there." Thus, Ruoye dragged its bandages and listlessly floated to the side. Huachang also casually tossed Eming over, and Eming assumed a dignified pose upon landing. Ruoye had been moping, facing the wall, but it suddenly discovered a shimmering silver scimitar leaning against that same wall. It very carefully approached. The eye on Eming's hilt twirled and looked over, its gaze calculating. Feng Xin remained somber and unmoved, making no show of acknowledging anything. Shilian had spent the past few days studying up on cooking and felt he had perhaps gained considerable insight. His heart was full of confidence. Wanting to show off his skills and properly host Huachang, Shilian bade him stay for a meal, to which Huachang of course cheerfully agreed. Shilian had bought a bunch of groceries on the way back from town, and he piled them on the altar. Picking up the butcher knife, he chopped and sliced, the pots clinking and clanking. The altar table could be used as a desk, kitchen island, and dining table as well. Cutlery could be set upon it. Children could sit all around. One could say it was a table of 100 uses. Huachang leaned against the wall and watched for a bit. Finally, he couldn't watch anymore and spoke. "Do you need help?" Shilian was at the height of his fervor and dismissed him. "Oh, no need. Ruoye's help is plenty." To demonstrate, he threw out a few bundles of firewood that hadn't yet been chopped. Pa! Like an attacking viper, the white silk bandage whipped the logs, and chunks of wood, originally thick as thighs, were instantly chopped into thin sticks of kindlings. Having shown off its skills, Ruoye arched into an odd, exaggerated form in front of Eming and Feng Xin, like it was demonstrating its strength and beauty. Said demonstration didn't last long. Shilian moved again to place a plate on the ground before tossing over a big cabbage. Ruoye was just about to strike when suddenly, Eming's eye flashed. It flew off the ground and whirled out. Shimmers of silver light. Leaves of cabbage filled the air, and they landed on the plate thinly and cleanly chopped. Shilian squatted to pick up the plate and praised Eming aloud when he saw the results. "Amazing! You kept better than Ruoye." Ruoye instantly pressed itself against the wall, looking like someone backing away with nowhere left to run. Eming spun its eye wildly and appeared fully smug, as if it were floating on cloud 9. Feng Xin continued to remain unmoved. Shilian hadn't noticed the little battle between the spiritual weapons, so focused was he on dropping all sorts of different vegetables and seasoning into the pot. However, he still had the mind to ask, "By the way, Sanlang, how long are you staying this time?" Huachang had been observing Shilian the entire time. He looked like he wanted to advise him in some way at first, but in the end, he smiled and said nothing of the sort. "Depends. If nothing's going on in Ghost City, I'll stick around to play for a few days. I hope Gaga won't mind me hanging around." "Why would I?" Shilian hastily assured him. "As long as you don't mind my place being a bit cramped." Shilian chattered animatedly, telling Huachang all about how Lanchang threw around blame and caused trouble the moment she set foot in the Palace of Divine Might. Of course, he refrained from mentioning how he himself had been accused, as well as the whole business with dripping blood on Yang Chen. Then again, He remembered Junwu saying Huachang had planted a spy in the heavenly realm, so maybe Huachang already knew everything that had transpired. Fortunately, Huachang only looked contemplative and made no show of whether or not he already knew. Shilian asked idly, "Sanlang, who do you think the father of the fetus spirit is?" Huachang looked up and smiled faintly. Hard to say. Maybe that golden belt really was just something she picked up off the ground. A vague response like that wasn't remotely Huachang's usual style, and it rather puzzled Shilian. But soon, the bubbling pot stole his focus. After 2 incense time, he opened the cover to the pot. Usually, all Churong ate were offerings that the villagers had made to Shilian. It was never anything more than steamed buns and pickles, noodles and eggs, wild fruits, and such other things. But at least it was food fit for humans. The moment the pot cover opened and the smell of its contents wafted outside Puchi's shrine, Chirong started screaming curses. "God fucking Shilian! Black-hearted snow lotus! You might as well just stab me dead right now! So acting good by fishing me out was all to make me suffer this torture? I've seen through you!" Before opening the pot cover, Shilian had been full of confidence. Now he doubted himself. He had tried his best and exerted so much effort, but it had still resulted in this entree. Huachang was watching. Whatever should he do? Was he really going to make Huachang eat something like this? Listening to Chirong scream bloody murder, Shilian became even more demoralized. Seeing that Huachang had crossed his arms and was about to go outside, Shilian raised a hand to stop him. "Never mind him." Shilian sighed and portioned out a bowl of the substance that had formed within the pot. "Don't eat anything from this pot. Just wait for me for a second." Then he went outside. He ushered Gushi and Lang Ying to go get a bucket of water, sending them away from the premises. Shilian squatted down with the bowl, looking pleasant and airy. "Little cousin, time to eat." Chirong was shocked and terrified in equal measure. "What? What are you doing? What are you planning? Shilin, I'm warning you, a human life is at stake here. You better think this through. Whoever the hell can stomach that shit will break free from the bondage of the 3 realms, flee the way of Dharma. No one..." Chirong trailed off when he saw Huachang ladle himself a full bowl, then sit next to the altar table inside the shrine and take a bite, his face unchanging and steady as the mountains. Chirong was shaken to the core. A thought he'd never had before flashed through his mind. As expected of a supreme. Shilian pushed the bowl against Chirong's face as he said calmly, "It's fine if you don't want to eat it. As long as you come out, that is." That was never going to happen. Chirong clamped his teeth shut, but Shilian squeezed his cheeks and easily forced open his mouth, dumping the contents of the bowl straight down his throat. A sharp scream shot to the skies above Puchi's shrine. The bowl in Shilian's hand sat empty. Chirong lay sprawled on the ground, wearing a twisted, scrunched-up expression. Even his voice was hoarse, like an old man wasting away. "I hate..." Seeing as Chirong still refused to exit the body even with a full bowl of Shilian's cooking forced down his throat, Shilian didn't know whether to be reassured or anguished. He really wanted to force Chirong out as soon as possible, but since he hadn't succeeded, it almost seemed to prove that this dish he had cooked with all his heart wasn't so bad after all. Perhaps it was even worth being proud of. Turning around, Shilian saw that the bowl in Huachang's hand was almost empty. He was eating leisurely, looking at Shilian as he did. Shilian's eyes lit up. and he rose to his feet. Sanlang, are you finished? He thought he had botched the meal at first, and been too embarrassed to offer it to Hua Chang. Who knew Hua Chang would take the initiative to help himself? Hua Chang chuckled. Yeah? Shilian prodded very carefully for his opinion. What did you think? Hua Chang slurped up the remaining broth and smiled. Not bad. The taste is a bit strong. Try making it a little milder next time. Shilian sighed a breath of relief and nodded. Alright. I'll remember that. Thanks for your feedback. Churong groaned.